I think everybody in their lifetime ought to stay in an overwater bungalow once in their life, because it's kind of incredible to be over the water and to be able to see the fish float beneath you. It's like staying in a nice, hotel room or something like that. It's really, really beautiful. Plus you get the option of watching the sharks and the stingrays and the fish float underneath you. And you usually have a little deck that you can crawl down into the lagoon, so you can go out of your own bungalow and right down into the lagoon. I thought that was amazing. I think everybody ought to do that once in their life.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Passport Diaries. We are a one-of-a-kind travel podcast by Travel Store that takes you to unique and off-the-beaten-path places all around the world. I'm Jackie Shern, your Travel Store host, and on today's episode, we are going to some of the most, oh my God, drop-dead gorgeous beach destinations around the world. Our guest is Brett Cook. After he retired, he basically became a professional solo traveler. And at this point, I think he's been to over 24 countries, and all with the help of one of our top travel experts, Suzanne Hamer. Since we can't possibly cover all 27 countries that he's been to in one episode, we narrowed it down to 4 that we're going to cover today, which are all kind of in a similar area, or that Suzanne recommended that he package together as long as he was making the flight out. So today, we're getting our passports stamped in Fiji, in Tahiti, in the Cook Islands, and the biggest island of them all, Australia. You're going to hear all about what got Brett started on his quest to see the most beautiful beach destinations in the world in just a sec. But before we board that plane and step onto those sandy beaches, be sure to follow us on our YouTube channel, where you can watch the video portion of our podcast, or you can follow us pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you like to listen, we're there. So kick back and get ready to head to all these beautiful tropical beach destinations with Brett Cook. But before we do, I couldn't help myself. We're going to talk about his dog. And how's your day going so far?
Good. I got up and took care of my little girl puppy dog.
Oh my God, what kind of dog?
She's a Pekingese, and she's about 14 years old now.
Oh, still a puppy. Every dog is still a puppy.
Pekingese look like they never age. They look like they're puppies their entire life. They're just kind of all fur with a flat nose, and they're cute, and they never look like they get old to me.
Have you had her all 14 years?
Yes. Yeah. And I actually got her and her brother. So I had them both as puppies. I got them when they were 5 months old.
See, this is the other podcast that I want, is to just talk about people's dogs.
Yeah.
I can do that all day long. Well, let's get into the good stuff. I'm like, where to start? But I know that we're going to talk about Fiji, Tahiti, which I realize you've been to twice, Australia, and the Cook Islands. But before we even jump into those fabulous places, let's just start with, how did you end up going to all of these fabulous, some would say exotic, far away, hard to reach beach locations? What brought you there?
So I got fed up with working with administration with my job, and eventually I just said, it's time to retire, because I just can't deal with administration any longer. And the day I retired, I called one of the local travel agents who wouldn't call me back. So then I went to the AAA Leisure magazine and found Suzanne as one of their top tier travel agents. And I called her and I called Costco, and they said it would be a year before I could get to Tahiti. And she goes, oh, I can get you there in a month. And I'm like, okay. So she got everything started and got it all rolling. And then I just told her, I'm like, I just want to visit all of the best beach destinations of the world. And the reason I chose the beaches is because when I go to sleep at night, hearing the ocean when you sleep is the most relaxing thing in the world. I just love to hear the ocean waves when I sleep. So I chose the beaches.
Go to the source. Yes. Have you always lived near a beach and just knew that was the calming?
No, I mean, when I was born and growing up, we lived in the valley, and so it was about maybe an hour to the beaches. And on vacations and stuff, my parents would occasionally take us to the beach, like for a vacation or something like that, because it was an hour away, until I moved away. And then when I moved back for my job, I moved to a city that's just basically at the beach.
It's always called you.
Yeah.
So was there something about Tahiti? Like, did you know where you wanted to start when you were like, I got to get out?
I had always heard about Bora Bora, and I was like, I want to go to Bora Bora. Everybody talks about Bora Bora, so I want to go to Bora Bora. And Suzanne said, well, if you're going to go to Bora Bora, we can do Tahiti and Fiji all at the same time. I'm like, sounds great. Sign me up. So I was like, just just book it all in there, and we'll go to all of them. And so we did. And I thought, I loved Tahiti, and if you want to do any shopping, the city of Tahiti is a really good place to go shopping, because they got this market square, which it's in a building, but it's kind of like like a Saturday market sort of a thing, where people come and display what they've made. And then there are regular shops upstairs. And so there's like 3 floors, and 2 floors upstairs are shops. And then downstairs is where people lay out the things that they've handmade or hand done and stuff. And so it's just a central market right downtown Tahiti, which is kind of a neat place. But from the standpoint of the beaches, Bora Bora, they just get out and manicure their beaches every day. It's like they make sure there's no seaweed that's washed up, and they get out and they rake the beaches and everything. I mean, the beaches just look pristine in Bora Bora.
Wow.
So and in Tahiti, the beaches are beautiful, but they don't get out and rake them every day and clean up the seaweed and stuff like that. So it's just a little difference between the two, but very, very similar. Tahiti and Bora Bora, the experiences that I went on in both places were similar. I did a snorkeling trip in both of them, and the snorkeling trip, we went out, and most of the places where you snorkel there, because it's lagoon in a lot of places, the water is only about 4.5 feet deep, and so you can speed up if you need to, and you won't have problems. And so we get out snorkeling around, and all of these stingrays and sharks come around us and just start circling the boat. And so we get out and we snorkel with the stingrays and the sharks. And then one of the guides actually got out and picked up one of the stingrays and let us pet it so that we could see what it felt like and stuff. So, and then after the snorkeling trip, they take us to this island with nothing on it. It's just an uninhabited island. And they serve us lunch there. And they made this a traditional French Polynesian lunch in both places, where they actually make like all of the bowls and plates and everything out of leaves, like the palm leaves and stuff. But they make all of the bowls and plates and everything for us to eat on. And then they make traditional Tahitian food or Polynesian food. And it's, you go through and get whatever you want. And then they had these picnic benches in the ocean that you would sit on, and the little tiny fish would come up and nibble at your feet while you ate lunch.
So you had like maybe a few inches of water, and there was just little fishies.
So the bench was sort of part water, part not water, but everything below that was water below the bench. And then the little tiny fish would come in, and it would be like a little tiny fish massage as they would pick at your legs and things. So
everybody's having lunch.
yeah. So, but it was very cool. So, and of course they taught you how to open up and carve a coconut and all of that sort of thing too.
What was kind of like the culture? So, correct me if I'm wrong. So, Bora Bora, Tahiti. So that was your first get out there and experience it. Was it what you expected?
To be honest, I didn't know what I was expecting. I was just like, hey, I want to go here because I've heard so much about it. And it sounds like a beautiful, wonderful place. So I just want to go because everybody always talks about it and how wonderful it is. So I didn't know much more about it than that, except that I was like, I want to go there and see it because everybody talks about it. That's how I started. And I thought it was amazing. I think everybody in their lifetime ought to stay in an overwater bungalow once in their life, because it's kind of incredible to be over the water and to be able to see the fish float beneath you. And the overwater bungalows are amazing because they've got air conditioning. They're all upgraded. It's like staying in a nice, hotel room or something like that. It's really, really beautiful. Plus, you get the option of watching the sharks and the stingrays and the fish float underneath you. And you usually have a little deck that you can crawl down into the lagoon, so you can go out of your own bungalow and right down into the lagoon. I thought that was amazing. I think everybody ought to do that once in their life.
What a unique thing to do. And it's pretty calm in those lagoons, right? Like we're not getting big waves.
Right. We're not getting hardly any waves or anything. I mean, you can hear the ocean a little bit, but right around the lagoon area and stuff where the bungalows are, it's pretty calm. So you can get out there and you don't feel like you're getting thrown around or anything. It's just kind of nice, calm, and people will go out there. It's like 4 feet deep or so. They'll get out there and snorkel around in the lagoons.
And is it like coral underneath?
So it's sand and rock. They've there's some coral, and I think most places are now trying to build the coral back. So they've got like coral gardens that they're trying to make the coral come back, because the heat and everything with the global warming and stuff, they said it's killing the coral, and so they're trying to revive it by growing it themselves now.
Yeah, like actually doing some cultivation spots.
Yes, yes. So there are areas of coral, but they're in between like a lot of sand and some rocks, but a lot of sand with some spots of coral here and there and things.
So then, after this trip, okay, at this point, how many countries have you been to? I know we're only going to talk about a few, but
I don't know. Suzanne told me I've been to at least like 27 different countries, so I don't know.
I think you rival some of the travel advisors at Travel Store for a number of countries. But yeah, so after this trip, was it like something switched, or you were like, I got to do this multiple times a year? Where to next?
I just want to keep traveling. I want to be home for my dog, so that she doesn't, get mad at me. So that's what I did. We just set it up to where I was home for a couple of weeks and then off for 3 weeks, home for a couple of weeks, off for 3 weeks. And that's what I did for about a year and a half.
You got some serious travel stamina.
I have to say, when I come back from some of those trips, it's like I feel the jet lag, and it takes me a while to get sort of, it was like, okay, I'm back for 2 weeks, but by the time I'm starting to feel normal again, I'm off again.
You may as well just stay out there. Take the dog with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next stop, what was Fiji like?
Fiji was, the culture was incredible, and I told Suzanne at some point I'd like to take my brother, because I think he would really like it, the culture and everything. But you get there, and Suzanne has everything arranged, and so you get to the airport everywhere you go, and there's a limousine service to take you wherever you need to go. And like when I talked with one of them, they were like, "Oh yeah, we chauffeur around all the celebrities." I'm thinking, "Oh gosh, I'm traveling at a whole new level now." But they take you to the resort, and the resort that I went to, they meet you all in traditional Fiji costumes, and they have a big drum, and they give you a coconut to drink with a straw in it, and then they bang the drums, and then they have you come around and take a picture with all of them in their costumes. And then you go in, and they would have traditional Fiji style meals, and there was stuff that you could order on the menu, but they would also have nights where they would have buffets and stuff too. And they had different things to do there. Like I went snorkeling, and I told the guy, I'm not a great swimmer. He goes, I'll go with you. And he actually was with me the whole time during the snorkel. Just to make sure that everything went well. And I went to one of the shows where they had a traditional fire walker, and apparently across from Nanuku, which is where I stayed, there's the island of Beka, and Beka is where the firewalkers are born. And supposedly, by their history, when they caught like I forget what they caught, like one of the gods or something, in order for him to be released, he made a deal with them that they could have anything they wanted, and they wanted to be able to walk on fire. So that was kind of the legend. And so we had this show where the firewalker came out and walked on the fire rocks and stuff.
So you didn't want to try the fire walking yourself?
No.
That's for the pros.
That is for the pros. And then I went to a carving class where they showed us how to carve coconuts into cups or bowls and use them. And then they also made us some ceviche during that thing. And then I took a tour of a traditional Fiji village, which was really interesting. The women of the village are the ones that show you around, and then they greet you with song and dance, and you take them some of their traditional tea root that they drink, kava or kavu, I can't remember. And when you drink it all the time, I guess you supposedly get drunk on it too. But anyway, it's a root sort of thing, and a lot of people will say if you drink enough of it, it makes your mouth numb. But you take them a package of that. They show you around the village and explain everything. You come back to their meeting hall, and then they do traditional dances and everything for you. And then at the end, they pull out things that you can buy if you want to help support the village and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the very end, when you're leaving, they sing you a song, a goodbye song. It was very nice. And they give you, it's not a lei, but it's like a lei that the Fiji people make, and give you that as you leave too. So it was beautiful. And when I talked with her, she was like, yeah. And she goes, when it's mealtime, we leave our doors open because we feel that conversation with a stranger is better than a meal eaten alone. And so I thought that was really, really incredible.
And that sticks with you when you like come back home and then you look around.
And it's kind of amazing too, because the resort that I stayed at, it had everything. I mean, it had there was a theater room and a pool and a home with all of the appliances and everything. But when you go to a Fiji village, and people at the resort live in those villages and work at the resort, but they don't have any of that stuff. And yet they do all of that for us. And I thought that's kind of incredible too, that they do all of that for us when they don't have any of that stuff. You know, their houses are small, and most of the kitchens are outdoor kitchens that they cook in and stuff. And so they don't have a lot of and they don't have any air conditioning in their place, and they do have fans but no air conditioning. So I found that kind of incredible too, that they would provide that much for their guests when they don't have any of that stuff.
I have heard also that the Fiji culture, like I've talked to a couple of travel advisors, I think Suzanne was one of them as well. They said anywhere in the world, this is one of the warmest cultures. And it's, if you are by yourself, they'll take care of you. If you have kids and you want to go somewhere else, they're like, bring us your kids. We will hang out with them because we want to. And they just seem very, very embracing. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's keep going west. The Cook Islands. That was one that you had done. I think the trip was Tahiti and Cook Islands, right?
Yes.
I know very little about the Cook Islands. But when I was looking at the Cook Island tourism website, I really liked something they were very clear to call out, which was there are no buildings taller than a coconut tree, and there are no big resorts, and it is very, very calm, relaxed, and small.
Yes. Yeah. It's the resorts are boutique resorts, and so they're all relatively small. Depending on which island you're on, some of them have more resorts in the area than others, but they're all little tiny boutique resorts, just a lot of them, and sometimes there are fewer depending on where you are. But one of the islands that I went to only had like one or two houses on it, and the owners of those houses rented them out, but there was only like one or two houses on the whole island. So, wow. Yeah.
Did you stay at a couple of different islands, did you say?
Yes. I stayed at, one of them was Aitutaki, and one of them was, first I went to Tahiti, to Papaete, and then I went to Rangiroa, and then I went to Rarotonga, and then Aitutaki. Those were kind of the main places. And then I went back to Bora Bora, and I did Moorea. And then I went back to my favorite place, which was La Bora Bora.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I stayed when I would do like a one night stay to go from one spot to another in Tahiti. And so I'd always stay in Tahiti, the main spot in Tahiti, and then go from there. So I'd usually fly in, spend overnight there, and then go to the other places. Okay,
so take me through those 3 Cook Islands that you went to. What did you do when you were there?
I did some snorkeling, and the snorkeling is absolutely beautiful. Again, you got to see a lot of neat, some of the larger fish and things, but just absolutely beautiful. It was just kind of a nice way to just relax and not have to do a whole lot. I did take a tour of one of the islands where we did a jeep tour of the whole island, and they took us up to show us some of the best views on the island, and then they took us down and showed us some pineapple groves and some different stuff like that to go through, and let us taste some of the different things that they were growing
at the source. I mean,
they also took us to a spot where they sell like souvenir type stuff, like shirts and different things, but they also have like a bar at the back where you can buy things to take home or drink it there. And they served us their different strengths of their alcohol drinks, which was interesting. I was like, yeah, I like the weakest one the best. The other ones taste too much like alcohol. I was like, yeah, I don't like that. I like the ones that don't taste like alcohol.
Yeah, not the ones that kind of slap you around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now I gotta ask. I mean, you're Brett Cook. Did you get plenty of jokes and references by going to the Cook Islands?
Actually, not.
Really?
I did go to One Foot Island, and One Foot Island is where the first post office in the Cook Islands was.
Hmm.
And now it's just an empty island. If you bring your passport, they will stamp it with a stamp that has One Foot Island on it.
Are you a stamp collector?
I'm like, just fill up my passport. This is really interesting to get like all of the different stamps on your passport and stuff. So yeah, I'm like, stamp my passport. I'm like, well, this place didn't stamp my passport. That's too bad, you know?
Yeah, yeah. They're badges. They are badges.
Yeah, yeah. The water was beautiful. The islands were gorgeous. What they had was enough, but I have to tell you, as an older person, I love it when they have restroom facilities right at the beach. And the Cook Islands doesn't have any of that. So you have to rely on, if when I was at One Foot, I was like, do they have a bathroom here? He goes, you can go out to the catamaran and use their bathroom. I'm like, that's not what I came in on. He goes, our company owns it. You can use it. I'm like, okay. So I went over there. He was like, you may have used the little boat, but the company owns the catamaran too. So you can use whatever we have. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yes, that's really funny. It must be so interesting. It's hard to kind of picture that there are still places that are uninhabited. I mean, I'm in LA. There's people everywhere, and it just feels like the world has been filled. But there's these places that very much not the case.
And the major islands where you stay are inhabited, but you can go to these uninhabited ones and just spend a day kicking around in the sun, snorkeling, or doing whatever you want to do. So, and I have to say in the Cook Islands, because they're inhabited and they're not, kept up or whatever, you do have to be careful when you're walking around, because they say coconuts can just fall on you, and they have killed people historically in some places. So they're like, just be careful when you're walking around and know where the coconuts are and be mindful of that when you walk around the island and stuff, because it's an uninhabited island. They don't have anybody cutting down the coconuts to just make it safe. If you go to a resort, they always cut them down, but not at these uninhabited islands. So you just got to be a little bit more careful when you walk around.
What a way to go. Honestly, if that was on my tombstone, I would laugh, but that's wild. I don't even know who the Cook Islands are. They independent? Are they?
I believe I'm trying to remember now, but I believe Rangiroa was under New Zealand rule, and then the Cook Islands, I believe, were under French rule, if I remember right, because you had to use different currency in both places.
Oh, that's interesting.
They used the franc versus the New Zealand dollars. And I made a comment. I was like, well, it's interesting because Paris uses euros, France uses euros. Why do they use the franc here? And she goes, because we're not part of the European Union. And so we still use the franc because they're not considered part of the European Union.
I didn't think anybody used francs anymore.
It's an X franc. So I don't know if that makes any difference, but when you look at it under the things, they do an X before the franc. So I don't know what that means, but
these are the little things that until you ask somebody, how would you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the biggest of the islands, Australia. So was it you were in the area already, or it was hey, where to next? How does Australia sound?
So what I told Suzanne was, I can travel anywhere, and I want to travel when the weather is good and when I'm going to get the most out of the travel. But I'll also be willing to go when it's the cheaper time, and if you can set me up however that works out, so that I have more money to keep traveling with. So I was like, set me in good weather, but maybe not at the high season time, so that that it will work that way. And then I was like, I'm game to go wherever the best rates and season take us, anywhere we go.
Yeah, and it's honestly so nice working with Suzanne. I mean, she is Such a pro. I don't know where she hasn't been. Actually, no, I know one place, but she said she's going to Bhutan next. So now I don't know anywhere she hasn't been. But it's so easy to ask her, like, when should I go to Australia? When should I go to Fiji? She's like, yeah, I've been there like a dozen times.
I was going to do New Zealand and Australia together, and she called me back and she goes, "Don't do New Zealand. This is their winter." She goes, "Go to Australia because you can get good weather there." But she goes, "If you go to New Zealand, you're going to hit them in their winter time, and that's not a good time to go." And so we went to Australia. I started out, I think the first place I ended up was Cairn at the ocean. It's kind of right there, and I took some trips to like the inner and outer Great Barrier Reef and did some snorkel trips there, which was kind of interesting because when Irwin got the stingray that hit him, they took us to one of the buildings where they did CPR on him and supported him until he got airlifted to the hospital. But they showed us the building where they did CPR and stuff on him on one of the islands. And then, of course, we snorkeled around the whole island. And again, there's nobody that lives on that island. It's just an island where tourists can come to see things. But it's got a lighthouse there, and way back when the lighthouse was in operation, they said one of the helpers of the lighthouse, because of the way the lighthouse worked at the time, it used mercury or something for the lighthouse, and they said one of them got mercury poisoning, and then a huge storm came, and he just went out into the storm and disappeared. But he had the mercury poisoning that drove him crazy, and then to go into the storm.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
If ever.
They did a full tour of the island too. They took us through the inner parts of the island and all the way around and through the lighthouse and through all of the outbuildings that were on the island, and then took us down to have like a snorkeling trip and everything else right around the island. But it was beautiful. And I told the guy while I was there, I was like, so if I go to the beach, there's nothing there that's going to be a problem, right? He goes, well, you need to stay inside the flags because he goes, you don't want the saltwater crocodiles to get you. And he said, we call them the salties. And I was like, they have crocodiles in the ocean? And he goes, oh yeah, we have freshwater and saltwater crocodiles. And I was like, wow.
Of course.
Yeah. So, and of course, I asked one of them, I was like, so you always have to be careful of the snakes, and particularly the brown snakes, because they're poisonous. And I said, where do they? He goes, they're kind of everywhere. And I said, but by the ocean? He goes, oh yeah, they're down by the ocean too. And I was like, really? So every night when I would go out and it would be dark, I'm like watching very carefully to make sure I don't step on a snake when I'm walking back.
I mean, it's nice to hear that they have such variety of fauna.
Oh yeah, but it was interesting because I was like, okay, I got to be careful of the crocodiles, I got to be careful of the snakes, and I did Cairn, and then after Cairn I went to Melbourne, and Melbourne was kind of neat, big city. They have a tram that you can get on, and it rides the perimeter, and it's all free. You just get on and off, and it doesn't cost you anything. And I went to the Queen's Center, where it's kind of like an open market where you can buy things and stuff. It was very cool. I got a couple of leather jackets, and the jackets only cost like $200 and some, but they were leather jackets.
Nice.
And I went to a hat shop and got some derby hats, but I also got an original Australian hat, like they wear in some of the movies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then I had a tour around a lot of Melbourne, and they took me to a sanctuary where they care for animals. And I got to pet a koala bear, and I got to feed and pet a kangaroo and a wallaby, and I got to hold and feed a flying squirrel. What they said was, we let the animals decide if they want to come out. If they want to come out and they want to see people, they come out. If they don't, we don't pressure them. We just don't, So she goes, I go into the koalas, and if one of them wants to come out, they come out and see you. And if none of them want to come out, then nobody comes out. But she goes, this one wanted to come out, so you can pet her and feed her. And so feeding her eucalyptus leaves, and she's eating some of them and dropping some of them. She's not eating all of them, and they said that's because they're not fresh enough for her. I said, so what do you do with the leaves if they don't eat them? And she goes, we feed them to the wallabies.
They'll take anything.
Yeah. While I was there, I also got to see a Tasmanian devil.
Oh, cool.
he was asleep, and they have this cutout barrel for him to sleep in, and he's sleeping with all four legs straight up in the air. She called to him, and he gets up and he comes out to us, and he comes over to us, and the minute he sees we don't have any food, he runs right back over to the barrel and goes to sleep again.
I appreciate he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
Didn't you also see an echidna?
Yes. So when I was in Byron Bay, I at the resort where I was at, it was in the rainforest. And as I was walking to dinner one night, there was an echidna just burrowing around in the rainforest. And so I took some pictures of him. Kind of looks like a big porcupine, but he's got a snout, but a snout kind of like an anteater, but he looks like a porcupine on his body. And he just burrowing around in the forest. And when I came back from dinner, there was a wallaby out there eating eucalyptus leaves.
Oh.
But Byron Bay was absolutely incredible. The beaches were big and wide and beautiful and just absolutely gorgeous. And one of the guides took me to this coffee shop, and he goes, "This is where people come if they want to be seen." He goes, "Everybody gets photographed here because this is the place to be in Byron Bay." And it's a coffee shop that's just kind of right on the ocean, right on the beach in that area. But he took me there, and then he took me to an area where it's more of a river where people take their dogs and animals and sit out and sun and let the dogs and the kids play and everything. And we walked around through there, and then just saw all different parts of the areas around Byron Bay, which was very cool. But the beaches in Cannes were nice, but they were narrow. And in Byron Bay, they're just wide, big, open, beautiful beaches. But beaches in both places were very nice, and the resorts in all of the places were very nice. They were all absolutely beautiful. And I went downtown and walked around Byron Bay. It's almost like, a small hippie town or something like that. It's just kind of like this little, it was quaint, but it just gave off this, to me, it just gave off this sort of a friendly hippie vibe, sort of very, very nice. Very, very nice. Yeah. I also went to Uluru in the desert, and I got to go out and see all of the rock formations and light gardens that they do at nighttime. They turn on the ground. They have all of these lights that they put out to change color and everything. And you walk through them, and you get to see all of these beautiful light formations and stuff that are just laid out in the desert at nighttime that you can walk through. And then I went through the museum where the Aborigine history is. And I did a trip through the back roads where we had to have an Aborigine person on board, or you couldn't go off the roads. But with her on board, we were able to go anywhere we wanted. And so we went off the roads and went around, and we got to see some camels, wild camels, and wild birds, and all of the off-road things. So, and they brought the camels over when they put in the telegraph, and they were supposed to kill them when they were done. But the people that worked with them all the time grew attached to them, and they didn't want to kill them, so they let them go free. And now they've just become, a lot over there. And they said something about they brought over both the 2-hump camels and the 1-hump camels, but I think it was only the 1-humps were able to survive. The 2-hump camels weren't able to survive or something. But they've even taken over space from the kangaroos and the wallabies and things. I mean, it's not like they're everywhere. You see them once in a while, but it's not like you see them all the time. They're just periodically you see them. So
and Uluru, it's a sacred site, right?
Yes, it is. And so there's a sacred site for the men and a sacred site for the women. And Uluru is the sacred site for the men, and that's the big tall one that's been there for forever. And it used to be you could climb to the top of it, but the Aborigine didn't really want people climbing up on it. It was the religious place, and so they banned that now, and you can't climb up to the top of it anymore. But it's a beautiful red rock structure, and they take you to places in a distance, and you can get your picture of you with Uluru in the background and everything. And then the other one is this rock formation with like multiple humps to it, multiple ups and downs to it. But it was supposed to be, I think that one was supposed to be for the women, but 2 rock structures. And we actually went down and walked around the base of Uluru and walked around the base of the other one, and in and out all of the different structures and hiked through.
And you went to Sydney, right?
Sydney, yes. Sydney is interesting. So I went down to the beach in Sydney. It's famous, and that's actually where they got the idea for that that lifeguard show that was on TV for a long time.
Baywatch?
Baywatch. So one of the people that was giving me a tour there asked me if I wanted to go surfing, and I was like, no, I didn't really dress for it. He goes, well, we got wetsuits and stuff. And so finally I agreed to it. I said, but I always fall off the surfboard. He goes, you could just surf lying flat. And so that's what I did. I surfed lying flat, but I got to surf that famous beach that that everybody talks about in Sydney.
I love hearing this. You started with in Tahiti saying you're not a very good swimmer, and now you've ended in Australia surfing.
Yes. But it was a very, very, very popular beach. Oh, and I went when I was in Cannes, I went through the rainforest, and so I took a whole day trip going through the rainforest there, and I had like an hour to be educated by one of the Aborigine there as well. So that was very, very cool.
What a place of diverse climates. Rainforest, desert, beach, coral reefs. Yeah.
Yeah. And because of my sunburn, when I hiked the rainforest, he showed me some leaves that they crunched up, put water on and made them foam, and then put them on my sunburn. It's one of the things that the Aborigines use for sunburns. So it was a leaf that they crush up, and then when they put water on it and rub it, it foams, and then they put it on the sunburns.
Did it actually help?
I think it helped. It cooled it a little bit. It was kind of like aloe cools it. Well, that kind of cooled it too. So yeah, he showed me some of their weapons and had me, hold some of their weapons and how you would normally use them and stuff. So when I did the rainforest trip, I went to a little gallery where he taught me. For like an hour, we had these little clay pieces to paint on, and we used the Australian paints and painted. He put out some designs, and you picked one, and then you tried to paint the same design that he put out.
Were you staying out? I want to call it the bush because that's what they call it. Were you staying out in the bush, or was this kind of a trek out? This
was a trip out to the bush, everything, and then back to the resort in the evening.
Where did you stay?
It's when I was in Uluru, it was the Sails in the Desert. So I stayed at the Reef House in Palm Cove, and I went through Mossman Gorge, which is where the whole day trip to go through the rainforest. And then when I was in Sydney, it was this big high-rise hotel that I stayed in. And then I stayed at Crystal Brook when I was in Byron Bay. But really, really, really beautiful places.
Stunning.
All of them were beautiful. They all had air conditioning, which is one of the things I told Suzanne. I'm like, I'm a lightweight. I need air conditioning. I can't sleep unless I have air conditioning. So she made sure that all the hotels that I stayed in have air conditioning, because I was like, I cannot sleep if I don't have air conditioning.
Were all of these places ones that Suzanne recommended, or did you know of any of them? Oh, great.
No, yeah. I didn't know of any of them. She picked all of that part out. I'm like, this sounds like a great place. But I let her pick the resorts and stuff like that, because I didn't know any of them. I was like, you pick them. I'll just go wherever you tell me is a good resort.
Yeah, we're spoiled for choice, so it is very helpful for somebody to help sort through the options. Yeah.
Outside of going to Hawaii, I had never traveled anywhere before I started traveling. So it was like, that was my first travel was like to French Polynesia, and that was the very first time I'd ever traveled outside of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of this was like my first time for all of it.
That's fantastic. And boy, howdy, did you not start slow. Like just full dive in. Man, it really sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it really sounds like your travel style is, what are we experiencing? And yes, that sounds great. Like, let's go.
And I like to go, and I like to I'm interested in some of the foods. And if I really like something, I keep eating it while I'm there, because I figure I may never have it again. So if the food is really good for something, I'll just keep eating that for like dinner or lunch or whatever every day, because it's so good, and I may not get it again. So I do that, and then I like to go shopping and pick up like one piece of clothing if I can from the trip there, or one piece of jewelry or something like that, just as something to take back. So usually I like to do that as well as all the activities. And certainly my big activity every time I go is snorkeling, because that's something that I love to do. I haven't used it yet, but I finally went and got one of those GoPros, and I'm going to see if that's better for doing like the underwater stuff and things, because so far I've never been able to, I've been able to get good pictures, because like in some of these places, the water is so shallow, you can take good pictures from the boat because the water is so shallow. I've got great pictures of sharks and manta rays right from the boat, but I haven't gotten anything good from being in the water. And I'm like, if I can find a decent camera that will let me do it from looking down on them, that would be great. So
it's definitely going to be better. I keep seeing some GoPro footage from Fiji from one of our advisors, and I'm like, this is unreal. You're going to love it. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us for this episode of Passport Diaries, and a massive thank you to Brett Cook for coming on and sharing all about his world travels that were designed by Suzanne Hamer. I think it's fair to say that he set the bar pretty high for all of us aspiring Globetrotters, and you know what? If I have to spend my life trying to reach that bar and follow in Brett Cook's footsteps, I think it's a life pretty well lived. If you want to discover more about any of these destinations, Fiji, Tahiti, the Cook Islands, Australia, I cannot recommend enough that you jump over to our website. That's the place that you will find travel journals written by our travel specialists. You'll find blog posts, trip ideas, inspiration, different destinations, and of course, our travel specialists. These are the people that have been where you want to go, and they will take all your ideas and put them into an itinerary that gets you the most fun, excitement, and value for your next adventure. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And until next time, safe travels from all of us here at Travel Store.